There's a law school where the median student scored a 175 on the LSAT. That is the highest median score of any law school in the country, and almost none of those students pay full price to go there. And it's not Yale or Harvard, their medians are 174. Most people outside law school have never even thought about this school, but this year it climbed to number 13 in the country. And it passed by a school whose name is on half the resumes in Washington. And that other school just had the worst drop of any top program on the list. And of course, today I'm going to name both of those law schools. I'll pull up the real data and I'll show you the one number that should flip how you pick a law school. Because most people read the rankings backwards and it costs them six figures. Let me start with the law school that everybody knows, Georgetown Law, one of the most famous law schools in America. This year, it dropped from 14th to 18th in the US News rankings, the biggest drop of any top law school. Now, of course, a drop in the rankings alone is not the story. Rankings move around every single year. The story is that if you look at Georgetown's own numbers, tuition this year is over $83,000 for 1 year times three. That's over $250,000 in tuition before you pay a single month of rent in one of the most expensive cities in the country. If you add in the living costs in DC, the real number is past $300,000. And the question, of course, is who pays that? It's you. You're the one who pays it. And if you look at Georgetown's scholarship table in its 509 report published by the American Bar Association, you'll see a whole lot more. For those who aren't aware, the 509 is a form every law school has to file with the American Bar Association every single year. It's public and almost nobody reads it, but I read them every single year. Now, that table in the 509 sorts students by how much grant money they got, whether they got full ride, they got half off, or a little off, or nothing at all. Now, at Georgetown, the biggest group is the one getting nothing, 880 students with no scholarship paying full price. That's more people than any discount group on the page. And the most common thing at Georgetown Law is paying every single dollar. And Georgetown can do that for a simple reason. It's huge. It graduates more than 700 students a year, the biggest class at the top. So when your name is that famous and you sit in the median of legal education right in the middle, the seats fill up on their own. You don't have to cut the price because a smaller, hungrier school does. And that's a big part of why so many pay full price. So let's think about, on the one hand, Georgetown has 880 people paying full price. The other school, the one with a 175 median LSAT score, they climb to 13th, a whole level above Georgetown, is WashU, Washington University in St. Louis. And if you're not deep in the law school world, that name might not ring bells. It might not jump out the way that Georgetown does. But the gap between how famous a school feels and what it actually does for you is what makes all the difference. If we pull up WashU's 509, same table, same groups, they've got about 780 full-time students. How many pay full price with no scholarship, like those at 880 at Georgetown? Only 43 out of about 780. And it gets better. On that same table, 77 students get more than full tuition. More than full tuition. The school is paying their tuition, and then on top of that, handing them extra money on top, cash, a living stipend, just to show up. So at Georgetown, the biggest group pays everything, and at WashU, most students get half off, a full ride, or they get paid to go there. WashU has a higher LSAT median score, and it ranks higher. Now, I know you're saying to me, Steve, come on, Georgetown is Georgetown. The name got to be worth something. You get what you pay for. But let's look at the outcomes. The reason most folks pay full price for a top law school is to work in big law. The big law firms that pay brand new lawyers $250,000 a year. That paycheck is the only thing that's going to pay off $300,000 in debt without wrecking your 30s. So the real question isn't which school sounds better when you're telling your family, it's which one actually gets you that job. And so we can look at the ABA employment reports showing the job outcomes for the class of 2025, the newest numbers that both schools filed. Georgetown, the big firms with 250 lawyers or more, where the $250,000 a year jobs are, only 59% of the class landed one, which is still pretty good, not as good as Columbia, but it's a real number. At WashU, 48% got into big law. So Georgetown wins that one by about 11 points. But of course, big law jobs are not the only thing that mattered. We also want to look at federal clerkships. Those are some of the hardest first jobs to get in all of law, Clerking for a federal judge opens up doors. You get top court work, a signing bonus of over $500,000 at some firms, even teaching positions. Georgetown put 5% of its class into federal clerkships. In contrast, WashU put almost 12% of its class into federal clerkships, more than double Georgetown in percentage-wise. If you add the two together, the two jobs that really move your career, big firm plus federal clerkship, we've got Georgetown 64%, WashU 59%, 5-point difference after you count everything that matters. Then you've got the simplest number of all. To be a lawyer, you've got to pass the bar exam. And so the ABA also publishes how many grads got a job that actually needs you to pass the bar. And I'm talking a real lawyer job here, not where a law degree simply helps. Georgetown, bar passage rate 92%, WashU 94%. So the cheaper school, the one paying its students, actually has more graduates working as real lawyers. And so, to put it simply, you're choosing between a school ranked 18th, Georgetown, one ranked 13th, WashU. Their results are about 5 points of each other on pretty much everything. On a couple things, the higher ranked, cheaper school wins out. One costs $250,000 in tuition. The other, for a strong applicant, costs almost nothing and actually pays some of its students. So that gap is basically a prestige tax. You pay extra in debt to go to the school with the more famous name to get a pretty similar outcome. And WashU isn't some weird one-off either. We could look at other schools, for example, like Texas. UT Austin ranked 16th this year, also above Georgetown, by the way. If you get in-state tuition, it's about $38,000 a year. And that's the in-state pride, of course. Out of state, it's about $57,000 a year, but that's still way under Georgetown. So a Texas resident pays under $40,000 a year for a school ranked only 2 spots above Georgetown. Now, Texas put 41% into big firms and 14% into federal clerkships. And so their clerkship rate still beat Georgetown's and beat WashU's as well. And 96% of its graduates got real lawyer jobs. And so if we ask ourselves, how did WashU get that 175 median LSAT score? They bought it. They didn't get it by accident. US News changed how it scores schools on a couple of metrics a couple of years ago. It changed its outcomes to focus more on results, including jobs and bar passage rates. But the big thing it still rewards is the LSAT median score of the class that the school brings in. So the median is just that, it's the median, it's the middle. Half the class scored above it, half the class scored below it. And so when a school says their median's a 175, that means half the people they let in beat a 175, and a high LSAT median pulls a school up. And so schools that are outside the top have a pretty straightforward move they've got to make. Find people with high LSAT scores and pay them to choose their school. So every 170 plus score the school can bring in bumps their median up, which bumps the rank up in the US News rankings, which brings in the next year's class. And so WashU, of course, is not engaged in charity when they give students a full ride plus a stipend. Those are the highest scores that WashU could find and convince to choose their school. The scholarship money is what the school invests to be able to put their scores on the 509 report and climb past Georgetown. So WashU is just playing a game. It's a rational actor. And all the schools are stuck in this game. And if the school is willing to pay for high scores, then your move as an applicant is to collect the money based on the score that you can achieve. That's what the schools are essentially bidding on. At a school like WashU, your LSAT score makes the difference between paying half tuition and getting paid to attend. And over 3 years, that's 6 figures. It could be more than the down payment on a house. So don't worry that you're not good enough to get in. The schools, one step below the top, want your LSAT score if you can get it high enough, and they'll pay you real cash for it. The 509 filings show it straight up. And so you can use your LSAT score as leverage. If you get a scholarship offer from one school, you take it to the next school. If you get an offer from WashU, you go to another school and ask them to match it or exceed it. And a lot of them will, because losing a high score drags their median LSAT down and it hurts them in the rankings. It's funny how people will bargain over a used car for an hour, but then pay 6 figures in tuition without blinking twice. It's worth negotiating your scholarships. It's the easiest money you'll ever make given the cost of law school, given what you're paying in tuition. And of course, I teach the LSAT for a living, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but look at the numbers for yourself in the ABA 509 reports. And if you want my help getting your LSAT score up, I'm happy to help you out, of course. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. That link as well is below the video, in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. For those just joining, I do these lives every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching this. If you find this helpful, by the way, please spread the word. The only way this grows is through word of mouth. I don't do any advertising for these lives, and the algorithm doesn't really boost them because they can't run ads during them, so I do appreciate your support spreading the word. I see a ton of questions here in the chat. I'll get to as many of those as I can. Feel free to just keep dropping them in. I see that C63 is asking, is 173 enough to get into Wash U with a full ride? Well, that's a strong LSAT score, of course. It's technically below their median of a 175, so I don't know that you're going to get a full ride with an LSAT below the median. The big missing piece here, of course, is what is your GPA? If your GPA is above the median, you've got a decent shot at getting in and maybe getting some scholarship money. Wash U is pretty ruthless in just buying people with high numbers. They're a lot more direct about it than some other schools are. That's how they've been able to aggressively climb the rankings. But with a higher LSAT, of course, you'll get better outcomes. Kadisha's asking, what do you think about a 167 LSAT score? It's good, not great, not necessarily enough for the T14, but when we say an LSAT score is good or bad, it's all relative to what outcomes you're looking to achieve, specifically what are the law schools that you're looking to target. If you are above the medians, it's a good score. If it's below the medians, then it's not good in that it will not serve you in achieving your goals. Of course, the missing piece here is your GPA. So we look at both your LSAT score and your GPA relative to the medians of the law schools that you're targeting, and that will help you determine what your chances are going to be. Teacher and coach is saying, our son got a 180 LSAT, Yale Law 16, SCOTUS clerk, practice. Congrats on your son's outcomes. Those are pretty incredible. Tiffy's asking, I worry if I score high on the LSAT. My GPA was a 2.5. I became sick finishing my 4-year degree. Okay, so I'm sorry to hear about the GPA and what happened during undergrad. I mean, the good news is that a higher LSAT can offset a lower GPA. You can certainly write an addendum to explain what happened during undergrad. The LSAT score will weigh more heavily than your undergraduate GPA anyway. Virtually every law school in the country weighs the LSAT more heavily, and you can see this in the Law School Admissions Index, the formula that law schools publish when showing you directly, publicly. They're pretty transparent about it, how they weigh LSAT relative to GPA. You can see all this on the LSAC website. Ashley's asking, I got a 169 on my GPA. Ashley's saying I got a 169 LSAT, 4.0 GPA, got into Cornell. Is this due to my GPA? Well, the GPA was certainly stronger than the LSAT. So in your case, you were a reverse splitter, high GPA, low LSAT. I can't tell you why you got into Cornell, though. I'm not the Cornell admissions person who accepted you. If I were to speculate, I would say the LSAT hurt, the GPA helped. Softs would also play a factor, I'm sure. So maybe you had great softs. That might be a missing piece there as well. Incognito's asking, are soft factors tiebreakers? In some cases, yes. That's a good way to put it. August is saying you're calling a 169 a low score. Wow. Well, only because of ridiculous score inflation on the LSAT. And when I say a score is high or low, it's relative to the medians. Last time I checked, I think Cornell's LSAT median was a 163. Somebody Google that and double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was around a 163. And so, I'm sorry, 173, not 163. So if Cornell's LSAT median's a 173 and somebody applies with a 169, then a 169 is low relative to their median. It's not me saying it, it's the numbers saying it. And so because the medians keep climbing higher and higher over time, what used to be high is no longer high. So you're saying, August is saying, I scored 169 in 2010. It was 97th or 98th percentile. That is no longer the case, unfortunately. Believe it or not, a 170 now puts you up at approximately the 95th percentile. A 175 used to be top 3%. I'm sorry, a 173 used to be top 1%. Now you've got to get a 175 to be in the top 1%. So the bar keeps rising. Jussel's asking, just let me see, he's asking, is it worth going to an unknown school? Okay, so there's this epic debate between going to a higher ranked school, a prestigious school with less scholarship money, or a lower ranked school, less prestigious, unknown for lack of a better word, with less scholarship money. And there's not a clear, definitive answer on this that everybody should follow when making their law school decisions. The law school that you go to, that you choose, should come down to what kind of employment outcomes you want. For some folks, if they want to go into big law, if they want to get a federal clerkship, they're going to want to go to a top ranked law school because those top ranked law schools are pipelines to get better outcomes for employment, to get the big law job, to get the clerkship. But if you don't want big law and you don't want a clerkship, it might not be a rational decision for you to go to a top ranked law school and pay sticker or pay significant tuition. If you want to work at a smaller law firm, you want to set up your own practice. I was talking to someone the other day who wants to do family law and get a JD, MSW dual degree. In that case, paying sticker probably isn't a rational decision because the debt's going to be huge and it'll be hard to pay it off. For that individual, going to a lower ranked school, an unknown school for lack of a better term, makes more sense to go to a lower ranked school and go for a full ride, not take on all the debt, since a lower paying position will make it harder to pay off that debt. So think about what you want to do. Look up the American Bar Association employment reports for the law schools that you're considering. The American Bar Association publishes those every single year. They published the most recent reports a couple months ago. You can see those on the ABA website. It's called the ABA Required Disclosures. You can see every single law school what specific number of their graduates went into this position or that position. And I've done a series of videos on these over the past couple months since the last reports came out. Forsaken is asking, why is there inflation? Is it because more people apply now? So law school applicant numbers are part of the reason why scores are rising, why LSATs are rising, why GPAs are rising. It's not the only reason, though. GPA inflation has been going on for a couple of decades in higher education across the board, in part because professors are scared of their students and don't want to give them bad grades and face hassles. You can look up GPA inflation or score inflation for more on that, or a grade inflation for more on that. There's a debate going on at Harvard undergrad about that right now. Then LSAT score inflation is due to a combination of factors as well. 20 years ago, the ABA changed its reporting requirements to allow law schools to report only the highest LSAT score of their entering students. Used to be the average, and so that's part of what's contributing to it. Additionally, you've got LSAT being offered 8 times a year rather than 4 times a year. So if you've doubled the LSAT frequency, it's easier to retake the LSAT. So more people are retaking. Additionally, the LSAT moving online, them shortening the format, removing logic games, being more liberal and granting accommodations for extra time. All of those factors are contributing to LSAT inflation as well. And so for all these reasons together, LSAT medians keep rising, GPA medians keep rising as well, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Braden's asking, is working in big law as a paralegal a unicorn, soft or no? I would say no. Most likely, being a paralegal is not that unique, unfortunately. It's probably the most common profession before going into law school, and working in big law is maybe more impressive than working at a smaller firm, but still, paralegal work is paralegal work, and it doesn't strike me as being super unique. When I think unicorn, I think unique, I think super prestigious that hardly anybody has, and it's going to make them sit up in their chair. Big law paralegal position, again, better to have it than not, but I wouldn't go seek it out just for law school admissions purposes. C63 is asking, is Fordham respectable or should I aim higher given a 173 LSAT looking to get a full ride? So Fordham is definitely respectable, especially if you want to live and work in New York. A school like Fordham, which is not a T14, it's going to be a really strong regional player. And so if you want to work in the New York metro area or the tri-state area, then Fordham is a great school to choose. And it might make sense for you to choose Fordham and get more scholarship money than to go to Columbia or NYU with less or no scholarship money, depending on what you want to do with your law degree. If you want a full ride, of course, it's going to be hard to get that from Columbia or NYU. It's going to be easier to get that from Fordham. Incognito's asking, would you take a full ride at Penn Carey or no money at Yale? Curious because the top three offer no merit. So yes, it's true. Harvard, Yale, Stanford don't offer any merit aid, only financial need-based aid. And so that might make Penn Carey a more attractive choice if you can get a full ride there. Again, the question is, what do you want to do? If you want the federal clerkship, if you want big law, might still make sense to choose Yale, especially for clerkships. Ritzy asks, does it make sense to do a hybrid school as a non-traditional older student considering law? Yeah, I mean, the hybrid options where you're spending the majority of your time doing law school remote online, those are becoming a lot more popular. Could be a good move if it's too hard for you to relocate due to family or work and you want to go part-time or you just don't want to have to move. Could be a good move. They're becoming more popular. There are a lot more programs like that. Just keep in mind they are competitive because there's a lot more demand for these programs than there is a supply of them. Gurufar is asking, I have a 365 PT at 173, 174. Do you mean you have a 365 GPA and you're practice testing at 173, 174? If so, cool. Decent GPA, great LSAT though. If you want T14, of course, you're below on the GPA, so we want you to actually translate those practice tests into concrete results on test day. You're asking, you want T14, should you just delay your September applications and work more on the LSAT? Okay. So should you delay your applications to work more on the LSAT? You've got 2.5 months. That could be enough time to turn the practice test results into concrete actual test day results. Whether you will or not, hard to say. I would look at where are your practice tests as test day approaches and then make a game day decision, right? So you could see, are your practice tests rising? Are they consistent? As a September approaches in that final week, do you feel confident that you will actually hit those numbers on test day? If so, go ahead and take it. In contrast, if you feel like you're burning out, if you're dropping a little bit, and you feel like, you know what, September's not going to be it for me, I want to postpone till October, then you know what, postpone till October. Ultimately, it's better for you to get the score, even if it takes you another month. So don't be concerned if you need to push it back to October. Better to apply a month or so later with a higher LSAT score than earlier with a lower LSAT score. So just keep that in mind. And if you, of course, if you want to talk more about this, if you want to reach out to discuss what your LSAT study plan could look like, you can book the free LSAT tutoring with me. The link to book that free tutoring lesson is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link's below the video, pinned in the chat in my bio as well. For those just joining, I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference PDF download on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Again, link below the video, in the chat, in my bio as well. Tommy's asking, my LSAT score was pretty bad. It was a 143. I don't want to retake, but I know I should. What recommendations do you have? So yeah, you know you should, and the answer is yes. I would recommend retaking. The reason being that a 143 LSAT score is not going to serve you in admissions. If you look at the medians, you look at the requirements, what does it take to get into a good law school worth attending? The truth is that no law school worth attending will accept you with a 143. Some law schools might accept you with no scholarship money, but their outcomes are really bad. So I'd recommend if you can get it up 20 points or more, you'll have radically better outcomes. And so the question is, how would I recommend you study for a retake? I'd go back to basics. Establish a strong foundation in the different sections, the different question types. In logical reasoning, for example, you've got roughly 15 types of questions, including strengthen, weaken, flaw, parallel, resolve, and so on. There's also reading comprehension to work on. That's a whole third of the test. Then you've got pacing and time management, doing individual sections, full-length exams to build up your endurance. Now, the most common types of logical reasoning questions specifically are necessary assumption, inference, and flaw. So I would start there, master those, drill them. Once you've got to reasonable accuracy in logical reasoning, of course, work on reading comp as well. Then do individual sections, work on your pacing, your time management, get into a rhythm of when do you slow down, when do you speed up, when do you flag questions and skip them and come back to them later. Then in the home stretch, you take full exams. And if you want to talk through this, of course, we create personalized study plans for all of our students. We look at where are you currently at, what's your goal score, what's your time frame. Then we craft an action plan to get you from here to there between now and your target test date. For those asking about pricing, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We personalize every program to the individual student. considering what you need to get to your goal by your target test date and considering how much time you have available to yourself to study per day and per week. So if you want to talk through it, best thing to do is book the free tutoring with me. We could talk through it together. Try Your Best is asking, I got a 177 on the LSAT, have a 4 something GPA. Do you think I could get into Harvard, Yale, Stanford? I mean, I'd say you've got a better shot than 99% of people. Not a promise or a guarantee. Of course, I can't speak for them, but I would honestly, I would blanket the T14. I would apply to all of the top 14 law schools with those numbers, see what comes back, see what offers you get, and then you can, of course, have some pretty tough but good decisions to make. So good luck to you on that. Carrie's asking, what about GPA? I'm not sure of my GPA because I went to multiple different colleges. I think I'm at a 2.9. Does a 170s LSAT score make me a candidate for a full ride? Maybe, depending on the school. Not at top schools, of course, because the 2.9 GPA will drag you down a lot, but a 170 plus LSAT can do a lot to offset a lower GPA at maybe some lower ranked schools. Look at the stats, look at the numbers for the schools you're targeting, look at their medians, and look at, okay, well, if I'm below the 25th percentile on the GPA, at that school, am I still above the 75th percentile on the LSAT? That's where you've got a decent shot of getting in. And of course, the stronger your numbers relative to their medians, the better chances you have. Surya is asking, do you suggest doing mock trial if you're really good at it? Yeah, I mean, lean into your strengths. I mean, if you're good at something and you enjoy it, then by all means do it. For law school admissions specifically, though, softs don't play as big a role as they would have for, say, undergraduate admissions. For law school admissions specifically, it's more about your LSAT and your GPA. But if you're early in college, if you're in high school, I don't know your situation. But earlier stages, earlier phases, of course, focusing on extracurriculars is not a bad idea, just to explore what you want to do to confirm that law school and being an attorney is the path that you want to pursue. Not a bad move. But as you get closer to the time to take the LSAT and apply, I would focus more on studying for the LSAT, getting a top LSAT score, and of course, maintaining a good undergraduate GPA as well. Evan's asking, how important is it to go to a law school in a major city or market? The way I'd back up for a second and think about, where do you want to practice? Where do you want to live? If you go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, of course, those are nationally renowned and you can get a great job anywhere in the country, I would assume. But if you want to consider going to a strong regional law school, that law school will have its best reputation in that region specifically. So think about, where do you want to work and live, and work backwards from that. If you want to live somewhere rural, then going to law school in a major city or market is not that important necessarily. So I would reverse engineer and start with the end in mind when you're setting out your plan. Zelly's asking, what if your state and city schools are T14 schools like New York City? Okay, so I could speak to this a bit because I'm from New York myself. I mean, there are T14 schools in New York, specifically NYU and Columbia, but those are not the only law schools in New York City. You've also got Fordham, as someone mentioned earlier. Then below that, you've got like 10 other law schools in New York and the surrounding areas. You've got Brooklyn, you've got Cardozo, you've got St. John's. Then you've got Hofstra, you've got Rutgers in Jersey, and many, many others I didn't even name, right? So if you want to live and work in New York, you could apply to all of the law schools in New York and the surrounding area. But I wouldn't limit yourself to just the T14 because then you don't really have any safeties in mind, right? So when you're looking at schools, you want to look at reach schools, which would be T14 for most folks, where you are below their numbers. You've got target schools where your numbers are on point, where you're at or around their medians. Then you've got schools where you are above their medians, and those would be safety schools, for lack of a better word. So I would think about, okay, well, am I applying to some law schools in each of those buckets? Reach, safety, and target. That way you're hedging your bets and you're not ending up, if you apply to only T14s and you're not at a 184.0, then you're taking a pretty big gamble. And if you want to wait a cycle, you're saying T14 or bust, that's fine. But for a lot of folks, it could end up being a good move to apply to some safety schools and then maybe get some scholarship money. And then, of course, you have the difficult but good decision of thinking to yourself, okay, well, I might go to a safety with a lot of scholarship money or a reach with not so much scholarship money. Sephora is asking, can I do well in law school if I'm not so good at public speaking? I mean, public speaking is definitely a skill worth learning and focusing on getting more comfortable, but not every attorney needs to be a public speaker. Not every law student needs to be super comfortable with public speaking as well. Of course, there is the need to speak in class. Sometimes professors will cold call you, and that can be rough, but that's just a one off here and there. And people get embarrassed about being in that situation, but ultimately, it's not really going to have an impact on you long term. So get ready for it, but you can do great in law school, get great grades, and succeed despite not being super comfortable with the public speaking. Scanning through for more questions here. Keep them coming. Kay Jesse's asking, do you see someone being under a median, being under it regardless of how far? I'll be applying with a 174 and a 386 GPA. So the extent to which you are below a median matters. And there's being below the median and also being below the 25th percentile. When you look at the ABA reports, you can see their medians, which is the 50th, where half are below and half are above that number. But then you can also see the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile as well. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the chances and evaluating yourself against those. But 174, 386 is pretty strong. If you're looking at the T14, of course, their medians are typically in the 3.9 range for GPA. So you'd be a little bit below that. But then the LSAT medians, you'll be above a lot of those, which is good. Jared's asking, I heard Howard is really good for getting into their students into big law. Would a 170 there also be good? So I don't know their LSAT median off the top of my head. I'm assuming that a 170 there would be good. Howard historically has been good for big law, but their numbers for employment actually dropped a lot this year. I did some YouTube videos on this. If you click the link in my bio on YouTube, you can go to the YouTube channel. You'll see some of those. Something is off there this year. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. It could be the part of the federal government's DEI rollback. So look into that a bit, because the latest data is not what has historically been the case. I tried to dig into why, but it's a bit complicated. Zelly's asking, should you start studying for the LSAT before, after, or during undergrad? I think studying for the LSAT before undergrad would certainly be premature. During undergrad, towards junior, senior year, might make sense if you want to go directly into law school. And then after undergrad, if you're already done with undergrad and you are taking a gap year or two, then by all means, it's okay to take a year or two. Your LSAT score is good for 5 years. And so I think that studying for it, you could study for it as a junior or senior in college and then go direct, or even take a gap year or two. Could be beneficial to study for the LSAT while you're still in that academic mindset, but don't study for the LSAT at the expense of your GPA. So keep that in mind. The LSAT's not going anywhere. Law school's not going anywhere. And your law school admissions is a function of both your LSAT and your GPA being strong. And if you want my help putting together an action plan for your LSAT prep, getting that score up, again, I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. You can grab that quick reference PDF on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. Again, unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Links below, pinned in the chat in my bio. For those just joining, I do these lives every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching this. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, all the best. Take care. Thanks for joining.